First contact gone wrong. The starship Resilient hung in orbit around 6 Prime, its sleek hull reflecting the pale blue light of the alien world below. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge, her dark eyes fixed on the viewscreen as it displayed the approaching Zixian diplomatic shuttle. "Well, here we go," she muttered, straightening her uniform. "Humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. Let's try not to screw this up." Her first officer, Commander Jake Martinez, chuckled beside her. "No pressure, Captain. We've only been preparing for this moment for, the entire history of our species." Sarah shot him a wry smile. "Your optimism is noted, Commander. Let's hope the Zixians are in a welcoming mood." The alien shuttle docked with a gentle thud, and Sarah took a deep breath before heading to the airlock. As the doors hissed open, she found herself face to face with the Zixian delegation. The aliens were tall and lithe, with iridescent skin that shimmered in shades of purple and blue. Their large, multifaceted eyes regarded the humans with what Sarah hoped was curiosity rather than hostility. "Greetings," Sarah said, bowing slightly. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth ship Resilient. On behalf of humanity, we welcome you aboard." The lead Zixian, its head adorned with intricate metallic patterns, stepped forward. "I am High Counselor Zix. We acknowledge your greeting, humans of Earth. We have much to discuss." As they made their way to the conference room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The Zixians moved with an almost predatory grace, their eyes constantly darting around as if assessing potential threats. Once seated, High Counselor Zix wasted no time in getting to the point. "We have observed your kind for some time, Captain Chen. Your rapid technological advancement is concerning." Sarah blinked, taken aback by the directness. "Concerning? I assure you, Counselor, we come in peace. Our goal is to establish friendly relations and cultural exchange." Zix's multifaceted eyes seemed to narrow. "Peace is a noble goal, Captain, but history has shown that rapidly advancing species often bring chaos to the galactic order. We must ensure that humanity will not pose a threat." Commander Martinez leaned forward, his voice tight. "With all due respect, Counselor, that sounds an awful lot like a threat itself." The tension in the room ratcheted up several notches. Sarah shot Jake a warning glance before turning back to Zix. "Unsure we can address any concerns you might have. Perhaps if you could be more specific about what aspects of our development worry you." Zix gestured to one of his aides, who produced a holographic display. It showed various scenes of human history, wars, environmental disasters, but also great achievements in science and art. "Your species is remarkably resilient," Zix said. "You survive conditions that would annihilate most sentient races. This resilience, combined with your rapid technological growth, makes you unpredictable." Sarah frowned. "Resilience is hardly a crime, Counselor. We've had to overcome many challenges in our history. Surely that's something to be admired, not feared." The meeting continued for hours, with the humans trying to reassure the Zixians of their peaceful intentions, while the aliens remained skeptical and probing. By the time the Zixian delegation prepared to leave, Sarah felt mentally exhausted. As they walked back to the airlock, disaster struck. One of the Zixian aides, apparently fascinated by the ship's systems, reached out to touch a control panel. Before anyone could stop him, he activated an emergency protocol, causing a force field to suddenly materialize. The force field sliced through the air where the aide had been standing. There was a moment of horrified silence as everyone realized what had just happened. Then, to the Zixians' shock and the humans' dismay, Lieutenant Kira Yoshida instinctively reached through the force field to pull the aide back. The force field shimmered and sparked. Kira's arm was severed cleanly at the elbow. The Zixians recoiled in horror, but the humans' reactions caused even greater consternation. There was concern, yes, but no panic. "Medic to the main corridor." Sarah barked into her comm, her voice calm and controlled. Kira, for her part, looked more annoyed than anything else. Not again, she muttered, cradling her severed arm. That's the third time this year. The Zixian stared in disbelief as Kira's shipmates helped her sit down, applying a quick sealing bandage to her stump with practiced ease. What is the meaning of this? Zix demanded, his voice shaking. Your crew member should be dead or dying. Sarah closed her eyes briefly, realizing that the situation had just become much more complicated. Counselor, I assure you, Lieutenant Yoshida will be fine. Our medical technology is quite advanced, and she was cut off by a gasp from the Zixians. Everyone turned to see Kira's severed arm beginning to regenerate, flesh and bone knitting together before their eyes. Impossible, Zix whispered. Commander Martinez stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. Captain, I think the cat's out of the bag. We might as well tell them the truth. Sarah nodded slowly. You're right. She turned to the stunned Zixian delegation. Counselor Zix, there's something about humanity that we haven't shared yet. Something that we've kept secret for a very long time. Zix's multifaceted eyes fixed on her with an intensity that was almost painful. Explain. Now. Sarah took a deep breath. Humans are, well, for lack of a better term, we're immortal. We can be injured, we feel pain, but we don't stay dead. We always come back. The silence that followed was deafening. The Zixians looked at each other, a mix of fear and disbelief evident in their alien features. How? Zix finally managed to ask. How is this possible? Sarah shrugged. We don't fully understand it ourselves. It's been this way for as long as our recorded history. We age, but very slowly, and when we die, from old age, injury, or disease, we regenerate. It usually takes a few hours, sometimes days, for more severe deaths. The implications of this revelation seemed to hit Zix all at once. This changes everything. Your kind cannot be controlled through fear of death. You cannot be truly defeated in war. You are a threat. Sarah finished, her voice hard. That's not how we see it, Counselor. Our immortality has taught us the value of life, of peace. We've had our share of wars, yes, but we've learned that conflict only leads to endless cycles of violence. We seek diplomacy because we understand, better than most, the true cost of war. Zix was quiet for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Finally, he spoke. This information must be shared with the Galactic Council. The other races must know. Sarah nodded. We understand. We were planning to reveal this eventually, but we wanted to establish trust first. I hope you can see why. As the Zixian delegation prepared to depart, the atmosphere was thick with unresolved tension. Zix paused at the airlock, turning to Sarah one last time. Captain Chen, your species is unlike any we have encountered. This revelation will send shockwaves through the galaxy. Some will fear you, others will seek to exploit you. Be prepared. Sarah stood tall, her chin raised. We've faced our share of challenges, Counselor. Whatever comes, humanity will face it as we always have, together, and with hope for a better future. As the airlock closed behind the Zixians, Sarah turned to her crew. Commander Martinez raised an eyebrow. Well, that could have gone better. Sarah sighed. It could have gone worse, too. At least nobody died. Permanently. Lieutenant Yoshida, her arm now fully regenerated, flexed her new fingers. Sorry about that, Captain. Instinct just took over. Sarah patted her on the shoulder. You did what any of us would have done, Kira. But I have a feeling things are about to get a lot more complicated. As the Resilience engines hummed to life, preparing to break orbit, Sarah gazed out at the stars. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. First contact, joining a galactic community. But now that it was here, she realized it was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity was far more resilient than anyone could have imagined. And whether that knowledge brought peace or conflict, Sarah knew one thing for certain. The universe would never be the same again. The Galactic Council's dilemma. The news of humanity's immortality spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within days of the Zixian delegation's return, the Galactic Council had convened an emergency session. Representatives from 100 different species gathered in the vast, domed chamber on the neutral world of Centauri Prime. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the entrance to the chamber, taking a deep breath to steady her nerves. As Earth's first official representative to the Galactic Council, she knew the weight of her responsibility. "Ready for this?" asked Dr. Arjun Patel, the xenobiologist who had accompanied her as an advisor. Elena nodded, her expression determined. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's go make history." As they entered the chamber, a hush fell over the assembled aliens. Hundreds of eyes, some multifaceted, some bioluminescent, some barely recognizable as eyes at all, turned to watch them. The council speaker, a tall, willowy being with flowing tendrils instead of hair, raised a hand for silence. "This emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in session. We are here to address the matter of the newly contacted species known as humans, and their unique biological trait." Elena stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. "Honored members of the Council, I am Ambassador Elena Rodriguez of Earth. We come before you in a spirit of openness and cooperation. We understand that our immortality may seem alarming, but we assure you, we seek only peaceful coexistence." A murmur ran through the chamber. The representative of the Zix, High Counselor Zix, rose to speak. "We cannot ignore the potential threat that these humans pose," Zix said, his multifaceted eyes glinting. "A species that cannot die, that can recover from any injury. They could overwhelm us all if they chose to expand aggressively." Elena opened her mouth to protest, but another voice cut in. "Or they could be invaluable allies." This came from the Arcturian representative, a being composed of swirling energy contained within a translucent exoskeleton. "Think of the scientific advancements we could make by studying their regenerative abilities. The medical applications alone are staggering." The chamber erupted into heated debate. Some council members argued for immediately quarantining Earth, others for establishing close ties. A few even suggested studying humans through forced experimentation, an idea that made Elena's blood run cold. As the arguments raged, Dr. Patel leaned in close to Elena. "They're afraid," he whispered, "but also curious. We need to show them that we're more than just our immortality." Elena nodded, an idea forming. She stepped forward again, raising her voice to be heard over the din. "Esteemed members of the council, if I may." The speaker called for order, and Elena continued. "Yes, humans are immortal, but that's not what defines us. We are explorers, artists, scientists. We've overcome our own destructive tendencies because our longevity has taught us the true value of life and peace." She gestured to the assembled aliens. "Each of your species has unique traits, abilities that set you apart. Our immortality is no different. We don't see it as a weapon, but as a responsibility, a duty to use our time wisely, to work towards a better future for all." The chamber had gone quiet, all eyes on Elena. She took a deep breath and made her proposal. "We request full membership in the Galactic Council. In return, we offer our unique perspective, our scientific knowledge, and a commitment to use our abilities for the benefit of all sentient life." The silence that followed was broken by the Zix representative. "And if we refuse? If we decide your kind is too dangerous to be allowed free rein in the galaxy?" Elena met Zix's gaze steadily. "Then we would return to Earth peacefully. We have no desire for conflict. But consider this. We've only just begun to explore the stars. Can you really hope to contain us forever? Wouldn't it be better to work with us, to understand us, rather than fear us?" The council speaker raised a hand. "We will need time to deliberate on this matter. Ambassador Rodriguez, you and your colleague will be escorted to guest quarters. We will summon you when a decision has been reached." As Elena and Dr. Patel were led out of the chamber, The sounds of intense discussion followed them. Hours passed as they waited in their quarters. Elena paced restlessly, while Dr. Patel ran simulations on his datapad. "What do you think they'll decide?" Elena asked. Arjun looked up from his pad. "Hard to say. Scientifically, they'd be fools to pass up the opportunity to study us. Politically," he shrugged, "fear is a powerful motivator." Finally, a chime announced the arrival of their escort. They were led back to the council chamber, which was now eerily quiet. The council speaker stood as they entered. "Ambassador Rodriguez, we have reached a decision. The Galactic Council is prepared to offer humanity provisional membership with certain conditions." Elena nodded cautiously. "We're listening." "First, Earth will be required to share all of its scientific data regarding human immortality. Our top xenobiologists will work with your scientists to study this phenomenon." "Agreed," Elena said. "We're as curious about the science behind our condition as you are." The speaker continued. "Second, humans will be restricted from holding any military positions within joint galactic operations for a probationary period of no less than 50 standard years." Elena frowned, but nodded. It was a small price to pay for acceptance. Finally, the speaker said, "We will require a small population of human volunteers to reside on various council worlds for observation and cultural exchange." This last condition made Elena hesitate. These volunteers, they would be free citizens, not test subjects or prisoners, correct? The speaker inclined its head. "Of course. They would have all the rights and protections afforded to any citizen of the council." Elena exchanged a glance with Dr. Patel, who gave a subtle nod. She turned back to the council. "On behalf of humanity, we accept these terms." A ripple of what Elena hoped was approval ran through the assembled aliens. The speaker raised its arms. "Then let it be recorded. Humanity is hereby granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council. May this mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation and understanding." As the session adjourned, Elena found herself surrounded by curious alien representatives, all eager to speak with her. But before she could engage, she was approached by a hooded figure she hadn't noticed before. "Ambassador Rodriguez," the figure said in a voice that seemed to bypass her ears and speak directly to her mind. "I am Genra of the Obsidian Conclave. We have been watching your species with great interest." Elena tried to hide her surprise. The Obsidian Conclave was a shadowy organization, rumored to be the true power behind the Galactic Council. "I'm honored," she said cautiously. Zenra's hood shifted slightly, revealing a glimpse of shimmering, faceted skin. "Your kind presence, opportunities, and challenges. Know that you will be watched closely. The balance of power in the galaxy is shifting, and humanity may well be the fulcrum upon which it turns." Before Elena could respond, Zenra had melted back into the crowd, leaving her with a sense of unease. Dr. Patel approached, his eyes wide with excitement. "Can you believe it? We did it. Humanity is part of the Galactic Council." Elena managed a smile, but her mind was racing. They had achieved their goal, yes, but at what cost? And what plans did the shadowy powers of the galaxy have for humanity? As they prepared to return to the Resilient to share the news, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger game. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, but the real challenges were yet to come. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter as their shuttle departed Centauri Prime. Humanity's future was out there, vast and full of potential. But so were new dangers, new rivals, and new mysteries to unravel. Whatever came next, Elena knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never be the same again. And neither would humanity. Covert operations and alien experiments. 6 months after humanity's induction into the Galactic Council, the initial excitement had given way to a tense new reality. On a dozen worlds across the galaxy, human volunteers had settled in as part of the cultural exchange program. But not all was as it seemed. On the desert world of Caldoran, Dr. Lydia Chang crouched in the ventilation shaft of a secret research facility, her heart pounding. She'd volunteered for the exchange program to further her xenobiology research. Instead, she'd found herself at the center of a galactic conspiracy. Team Alpha, are you in position? The voice of Captain Marcus Reeves crackled through her earpiece. Affirmative, Lydia whispered. I'm above the main lab. Security is heavy, but I think I can bypass it. Proceed with caution, Marcus replied. Remember, we're here to gather intel, not start a war. Lydia took a deep breath and began working on the security panel. Her fingers moved swiftly, applying the hacking techniques she'd learned during her crash course in covert ops. As she worked, her mind drifted back to how she'd ended up here. It had started with subtle oddities. 2 frequent medical exams, restricted areas in the research facility, whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. Then came the disappearances. Other human volunteers, vanishing without explanation. She'd reported her suspicions to the human embassy, but the bureaucratic wheels turned slowly. Too slowly. So when Captain Reeves had approached her about joining a cover team to investigate, she jumped at the chance. The security panel beeped softly, and the grate beneath her slid open. Lydia lowered herself into the lab, landing silently on the polished floor. The lab was a marvel of alien technology, filled with equipment she could barely comprehend. But her attention was drawn to a row of stasis pods along the far wall. Pods sized for human occupants. Oh my God, she breathed, approaching the nearest pod. Inside, suspended in a greenish fluid, was a human man. His chest rose and fell slowly, but his eyes were closed. Electrodes covered his body, feeding data to nearby consoles. Alpha Team, report. Marcus's voice came through again. Captain, you need to see this, Lydia said, her voice shaking. They're experimenting on us, trying to unlock the secret of our immortality. A sound from the corridor made Lydia freeze. Footsteps were approaching. Hide, Marcus hissed through the comm. Lydia ducked behind a large piece of equipment, just as the lab doors slid open. 2 aliens entered, a Caldoran scientist and a hooded figure she recognized from briefing files as a member of the Obsidian Conclave. The results are promising, the scientist was saying, his jewel mouths forming the words in stereo. We've managed to isolate the regenerative factors in their cellular structure. The hooded figure glided to one of the stasis pods. And weaponization, is it possible? Lydia's blood ran cold. This was worse than they'd imagined. Theoretically, yes, the scientist replied. But the ethical implications? Ethics are a luxury we cannot afford, the conclave member interrupted. The balance of power is shifting. We must be prepared. Lydia's mind raced. She needed to get this information back to Earth, but how could she escape undetected? The decision was made for her when an alarm suddenly blared through the facility. The scientist rushed to a console. Intruder alert in Sector 7. How did they get past our defenses? The conclave member's hood turned, and Lydia could have sworn its gaze landed right on her hiding spot. Find them, it commanded. No one must know what we're doing here. As the 2 aliens rushed from the lab, Lydia emerged from her hiding place. Captain, our cover's blown. What's your status? Pinned down in Sector 7, Marcus replied, the sound of weapons fire in the background. We need an exit strategy. Now. Lydia's gaze fell on the stasis pods. A crazy idea formed in her mind. I think I have a plan. But you're not going to like it. 10 minutes later, alarms were blaring throughout the facility as Caldoran security forces converged on Sector 7. They burst into a lab to find Captain Reeves and his team surrounded, weapons raised in defiance. Surrender, humans, the Caldoran commander barked. You are in violation of. He was cut off as Reeves raised a hand, a detonator clearly visible. I wouldn't finish that sentence if I were you, the captain said calmly, unless you want us to release the contents of these. He gestured to a row of canisters behind him. The Caldoran's eyes widened in recognition. The regenerative formula. You wouldn't dare. It's unstable, untested. It could kill every living thing in this facility. Reeves smiled grimly. That's a risk we're willing to take. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to let us walk out of here, along with all the humans you've been keeping in those stasis pods. In return, we don't release a plague that could rewrite the genetic code of every species in the galaxy. For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the Caldoran commander lowered his weapon. Stand down, he ordered his troops. Let them pass. As Reeves and his team made their way to their hidden shuttle, half carrying the still groggy rescued volunteers, Lydia felt a mix of triumph and dread. They'd accomplished their mission, but at what cost? The galaxy now knew that humans were willing to go to extreme lengths to protect their own. Once safely in hyperspace, Lydia approached Captain Reeves. "Sir, about those canisters." Reeves chuckled. "Synthetic protein shake, Dr. Chung. Completely harmless. But they didn't know that." Lydia let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "So we didn't actually steal their formula." "Oh, we did," Reeves said, his expression turning serious. "It's encoded in the DNA of the volunteers we rescued. Once we get them back to Earth, our scientists can begin studying it. With luck, we'll be able to develop defenses against whatever weapons the Conclave is cooking up." As the stars streaked by outside the shuttle's viewport, Lydia pondered the implications of what they'd done. They'd saved lives and gathered crucial intelligence, but they'd also escalated a silent war that had been brewing since humanity's first contact. Back on Earth, the news of the Caldoran incident sent shockwaves through the highest levels of government. In a secure bunker deep beneath Geneva, the Human Defense Council convened an emergency session. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's lead diplomat, faced the grim-faced military and political leaders. "The situation is more complex than we initially believed," she began. "It's clear that certain factions within the Galactic Council see us as a threat to be controlled or a resource to be exploited." General Zhang, the grizzled head of Earth's combined military forces, leaned forward. "Then perhaps it's time we showed them why we should be feared, not experimented on." Elena shook her head. "Escalation is not the answer, General. We need to navigate this carefully. If we react with aggression, we'll only confirm their worst fears about us." "So what do you propose?" asked Dr. Patel, who had been brought in as the lead scientific advisor. Elena took a deep breath. "We continue our policy of open cooperation with the Council as a whole. But we also step up our covert operations. We need to identify our allies and our enemies, and be prepared for whatever comes next." The Defense Council debated long into the night, weighing the risks and benefits of various strategies. In the end, they agreed on a multi-pronged approach: increased diplomatic efforts, covert intelligence gathering, and the acceleration of Earth's own research into the nature of human immortality. As the session adjourned, Elena found herself alone with Dr. Patel. The xenobiologist looked troubled. "What's on your mind, Arjun?" she asked. He sighed. "I can't help but wonder if we're making a mistake. Our immortality. It's not just a biological quirk. It's shaped our entire culture, our way of thinking. Are we ready to share that with the galaxy, and are they ready for us?" Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "Ready or not, we're here. The galaxy is going to have to adapt to us, just as we're adapting to it. All we can do is try to guide that process in a positive direction." As they left the bunker, emerging into the cool night air, Elena gazed up at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were exploring alien worlds, forming friendships with strange beings, and yes, facing dangers they could scarcely have imagined. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also a place of shadows and secrets, of ancient powers and hidden agendas. Humanity had taken its first steps into this cosmic dance, and there would be no turning back. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Elena knew one thing for certain: the human spirit, tempered by centuries of life and death and rebirth, would face them head-on. For in the end, it wasn't immortality that made humans unique. It was their boundless capacity for adaptation, for hope, and for imagining a better future, no matter how long it took to get there. The game was afoot, and the stakes were higher than ever. But humanity, as always, was ready to play. The multiverse incursion. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Holographic displays flickered with images of destruction from a dozen worlds. Panicked voices filled the air as representatives from across the galaxy demanded answers, action, anything to stem the tide of the unthinkable. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the storm, her face a mask of calm determination. Beside her, Dr. Arjun Patel worked furiously on a datapad, correlating the incoming reports. Order. The council speaker's voice boomed over the din. We must have order if we are to address this crisis. As the chamber quieted, Elena stepped forward. Esteemed members of the council, the threat we face is unlike anything our galaxy has encountered before. The incursions we're seeing aren't just from another part of space. They're from another reality entirely. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the assembly. The Arcturian representative, its energy form pulsing with agitation, spoke up. Preposterous. Interdimensional travel is purely theoretical. It can't be. I'm afraid it can. Dr. Patel interrupted, projecting a holographic model into the center of the chamber. We've analyzed the quantum signatures of the incursion points. They're consistent with a breach in the fabric of space-time itself. The model showed a visualization of multiple realities, like soap bubbles pressed together. In one spot, the boundaries between bubbles have begun to dissolve. Something, or someone, is punching holes between dimensions, Elena continued. And what's coming through? She paused, searching for words to describe the horrors they'd seen. It defies our understanding of physics, of biology. Entire ecosystems are being rewritten. Planets are being twisted into impossible shapes. The Zix representative, Zix, leaned forward. And what of the beings causing this? Have we made contact? Elena shook her head. Attempts at communication have failed. Whether they can't understand us, or simply don't care to, we don't know. But their actions make their intentions clear. They're reshaping our reality to suit their own, with no regard for the life forms already here. The chamber erupted into panicked discussion once more. Elena raised her voice to be heard over the din. We need a coordinated response, and we need it now. Every world, every species is at risk. We must set aside our differences and work together if we're to have any hope of stopping this incursion. As the council debated strategy, Dr. Patel pulled Elena aside. There's something else, he said in a low voice. Something I didn't want to announce to the whole council yet. Elena frowned. What is it? Arjun's eyes were grave. The incursions. They're not random. They're following a pattern. And if my calculations are correct, the next target will be Earth. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. How long? Days. Maybe less. She nodded, her mind racing. We need to warn Earth, prepare our defenses. But we also need the Council's help. If Earth falls, the whole galaxy could be next. Arjun finished. The whole galaxy could be next. Arjun finished. Elena turned back to the council, her voice ringing out with newfound urgency. Honored representatives, we don't have time for debate. I propose the formation of an emergency task force, with representatives from every major species. We'll pool our knowledge, our technology, our strongest warriors. It may be our only chance. To her surprise, it was Zix who spoke in support. The human speaks wisdom. We have had our differences, but in the face of this threat, we must stand united. One by one, other representatives voiced their agreement. Within hours, the Galactic Defense Task Force was formed, with Elena as its leader. As ships from a dozen worlds converged on Earth, Elena found herself on the bridge of the Defiant, Earth's most advanced battlecruiser. Captain Sarah Chen, the officer who had made first contact with the Zix so long ago, stood at her side. Seems like just yesterday we were worried about making a good first impression, Sarah said with a wry smile. Now look at us, leading an alien armada to save reality itself. Elena managed a small laugh. Funny how things work out. Her expression turned serious. Sarah, I need you to promise me something. If this goes badly, if it looks like Earth will fall, you'll make sure our ships evacuate as many people as possible. Sarah nodded grimly. We'll save who we can. But let's focus on making sure it doesn't come to that. As they approached Earth, the sensors lit up with warnings. A massive distortion was forming in orbit, twisting space itself into impossible geometries. All ships, battle stations. Sarah barked. Prepare to engage on my mark. The distortion grew, a yawning maw of unreality that threatened to swallow the planet whole. And then, emerging from its depths, came the invaders. They defied description. Shapes that hurt the eye to look upon, beings that seemed to exist in more dimensions than should be possible. Where they touched, reality itself buckled and warped. Open fire, Sarah commanded, and the combined firepower of a dozen alien fleets lashed out at the interdimensional horrors. Energy beams, plasma bolts, and weapons beyond human understanding slammed into the invaders. Some seemed to have an effect, causing the creatures to recoil or dissipate. Others passed through harmlessly, as if the beams weren't fully present in this reality. We need to close that portal, Elena shouted over the din of battle. Dr. Patel, any ideas? Arjun's fingers flew over his console. If we can generate a sufficiently powerful quantum field, we might be able to stabilize the dimensional boundaries. But we'd need more energy than all our ships combined can produce. Elena's mind raced. Then an idea struck her. A desperate, possibly suicidal idea. What if we used the Earth itself, tapped into its core? Arjun's eyes widened. Theoretically possible, but the risks. We could destabilize the planet's magnetic field, trigger worldwide disasters. Compared to being erased from reality, I'll take that chance. Elena opened a channel to the Allied fleet. All ships, concentrate your fire on these coordinates. We need to punch a hole through the invaders' lines. As the alien armada focused its attack, a path opened up. Elena turned to Sarah. Get us down there. And pray this works. The Defiant plunged through the maelstrom, weaving between twisted shapes and reality-warping anomalies. They broke through the atmosphere, streaking towards a predetermined location in the Pacific. All hands, brace for impact. Sarah yelled as the ship plunged into the ocean. They dove deep, the hull groaning under the pressure. Finally, they reached the ocean floor, where a secret installation had been hastily constructed. Elena, Sarah, and Arjun raced from the ship, joining a team of human and alien scientists at a massive device that bored into the Earth's crust. We've got one shot at this, Arjun said, his fingers dancing over the controls. If my calculations are off by even a fraction. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. You've got this, Arjun. We trust you. As the device powered up, drawing energy from the Earth's molten core, the ground began to shake. Above, through monitors linked to orbital cameras, they could see the invaders pressing closer, reality warping around them. Now, Arjun shouted, activating the device. A beam of pure energy, more powerful than anything humans had ever harnessed, shot from the ocean floor straight into the heart of the dimensional rift. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a silent flash that lit up the sky brighter than 1,000 suns, the rift began to close. The invaders, caught in the backlash, were drawn back into their own reality. As quickly as it had begun, it was over. The sky above Earth was clear once more, save for the battered but triumphant ships of the Allied fleet. In the underwater base, Elena let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Did it work? Is it over? Arjun checked his readings, a smile slowly spreading across his face. The rift is closed. Dimensional stability is returning to normal. We did it. Cheers erupted throughout the base and across the communication channels. Humans embraced aliens, differences forgotten in the joy of shared survival. As the adrenaline faded, Alina found herself looking out at the dark ocean beyond the base's viewports. They had faced a threat beyond imagination and emerged victorious. But at what cost? And what would this mean for humanity's place in the galaxy? One thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. The boundaries between realities had been breached once. It could happen again. But now, the galaxy was united in a way it never had been before. As cleanup and recovery efforts began, Alina knew that humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps its greatest opportunity, lay ahead. They had proven themselves not just to the galaxy, but to the multiverse itself. The future was uncertain, but full of possibility, and humanity, with its unique perspective on life and death, was ready to face whatever came next. Together with their new allies, they would explore not just the stars, but the very fabric of reality itself. The next chapter of galactic history was about to be written, and humanity would be holding the pen. A new galactic order. 1 year after the multiverse incursion, the Galactic Council convened for its centennial assembly. The Great Dome Chamber on Centauri Prime, once a testament to the orderly proceedings of interstellar politics, now bore the scars of recent history. Makeshift repairs patched holes in the ornate ceiling, and the ranks of delegates were noticeably thinner, empty seats a silent memorial to worlds lost in the crisis. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the podium, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. The past year had aged her, lines of worry etched into her face, but her eyes burned with an indomitable spirit. "Esteemed members of the Council," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, "we gather today not just as survivors, but as architects of a new era. The multiverse incursion tested us in ways we could never have imagined. It forced us to confront not just external threats, but our own limitations, our own prejudices." She paused, letting her words sink in. "In our darkest hour, we found strength not in isolation, but in unity. Species that once viewed each other with suspicion fought side by side. Technologies were shared, not hoarded. And at the center of it all, proving themselves time and again, were the humans." A murmur ran through the chamber. Alina continued, her voice growing stronger. "Yes, we are immortal. Yes, we are resilient in ways that may seem frightening, but we have shown that these traits are not a threat, but a resource, one we willingly share with the galaxy." The Zix representative, Zix, rose to speak. None can deny the pivotal role humans played in repelling the incursion. Their unique perspective on life and death allowed them to take risks, to make sacrifices that saved countless lives across the galaxy. Elena nodded in acknowledgement. "We thank you for those words, Representative Zix. But we do not seek accolades. What we seek is a true partnership, a restructuring of the Galactic Council to reflect the new realities we face." She activated a holographic display, showing a new organizational chart for the Council. "We propose the formation of specialized committees, drawing on the strengths of each member species, a rapid response force, ready to face future extradimensional threats, a scientific cooperative, dedicated to understanding and harnessing the multiverse, and a cultural exchange initiative to deepen our bonds and foster true understanding between our peoples." The chamber buzzed with discussion. The Arcturian representative, its energy form pulsing with excitement, spoke up. "And what role do humans see for themselves in this new order?" Elena smiled. "We offer ourselves as a bridge. Our immortality gives us a unique long-term perspective. We can be the institutional memory of the galaxy, the constant in an ever-changing cosmos. But we do not seek to rule or dominate. We ask only for equal partnership and the opportunity to contribute." As the Council debated the proposals, Dr. Arjun Patel approached Elena, his expression troubled. "A word, Ambassador," he whispered. They stepped aside, and Arjun spoke in low tones. "Elena, we've detected something. The dimensional barriers, they're still weakened, Small incursions are happening across the galaxy. Nothing like before, but Alina's brow furrowed. Why wasn't I informed earlier? We only just confirmed it. Most species sensors aren't calibrated to detect these micro breaches, but ours are, thanks to what we learned during the crisis. Alina nodded, her mind racing. We need to tell the Council, but carefully. If we handle this wrong, it could undo everything we're working towards. She returned to the podium, raising her hand for attention. Esteemed representatives, there is one more matter we must address. Our scientists have detected residual weaknesses in the fabric of space-time. The threat of interdimensional incursion, while greatly reduced, is not over. A ripple of alarm spread through the chamber. Alina pressed on. But this is not cause for panic. Rather, it is an opportunity. An opportunity to put our new partnerships to the test, to work together in monitoring and studying these phenomena. With our combined knowledge and resources, we can turn this potential threat into a gateway for exploration and discovery. The Council erupted into discussion, some voices raised in fear, others in excitement at the possibilities. As the debate raged, Alina felt a presence at her side. She turned to see Genra of the Obsidian Conclave, the enigmatic figure's hooded face unreadable. You play a dangerous game, Ambassador, Genra's voice echoed in Alina's mind. Revealing such information could destabilize the very order you seek to create. Alina met the unseen gaze steadily. Hiding it would be even more dangerous. We've seen where secrets and mistrust lead. It's time for a new approach. Genra was silent for a long moment. Then, to Alina's surprise, the hooded figure nodded. Perhaps you are right. The old ways failed us in the face of the incursion. Your species continues to surprise us, Ambassador. We will be watching your new approach with great interest. As Genra melted back into the shadows, Alina turned her attention back to the Council. The debate was intense, but she could see the tide turning. Species that had once been bitter rivals were now discussing joint research initiatives. Talk of weapons and defenses was giving way to proposals for exploration and scientific cooperation. Finally, after hours of deliberation, the Council speaker called for a vote. Alina held her breath as the results were tallied. The motion passes, the speaker announced. The Galactic Council will be restructured according to the human proposal. Furthermore, a joint task force will be established to study and monitor interdimensional phenomena. A cheer went up from many of the delegates. Alina felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. A new chapter in galactic history was beginning, and humanity would play a central role. As the session adjourned, Alina found herself surrounded by representatives from a dozen worlds, all eager to discuss the new initiatives. She caught sight of Captain Sarah Chen, who gave her a thumbs up from across the chamber. Hours later, as the twin moons of Centauri Prime rose over the horizon, Alina stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city. Dr. Patel joined her, handing her a glass of iridescent alien wine. "Not bad for a day's work," he said with a smile. "Restructuring the entire galactic political system, revealing ongoing interdimensional phenomena. Just another day at the office, right?" Alina chuckled, taking a sip of the wine. It tasted of stardust and possibilities. "Sometimes I'd wonder if we're doing the right thing, Arjun. Are we moving too fast? Pushing too hard?" Arjun leaned on the balcony railing, his gaze on the stars above. "Maybe. But that's always been humanity's way, hasn't it? We push boundaries. We take risks. Sometimes we fall, but we always get back up. And now we're teaching the galaxy to do the same." Alina nodded, considering his words. "I just hope we're ready for what comes next. The multiverse, it's bigger than we ever imagined. Who knows what's out there, waiting to be discovered?" "That's the exciting part," Arjun said, his eyes twinkling. "For the first time in a long time, the future is wide open. And we get to help shape it." As if in response to his words, a streak of light blazed across the sky. A ship, departing for some distant world. Elena raised her glass in a silent toast. To the future, to the unknown, to the endless possibilities that lay ahead. The next day, as Elena prepared to return to Earth, she received a message. It was from the Obsidian Conclave, encoded in a way that spoke volumes about their newfound respect for humanity. The message was brief, but its implications were staggering. The barriers between realities are thinning. What was once impossible is now within reach. Prepare your people, Ambassador. The age of single-universe thinking is over. The multiverse awaits. Elena read the message twice, then erased it, her mind whirling with the possibilities. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, proved its worth in the face of cosmic threats. But this was something else entirely, a new frontier, vaster than they had ever dreamed. As her ship broke orbit, Elena looked back at the glittering jewel of Centauri Prime. The Galactic Council had been reshaped, old enmities set aside in favor of cooperation and shared discovery. It was a good start. But Elena knew it was just that, a start. The real journey was just beginning. Humanity, with its unique perspective on life, death, and everything in between, was poised to lead the charge into a new era of exploration and discovery. The multiverse beckoned, full of wonders and terrors beyond imagination. And humanity, as always, was ready to face it head-on. For in the end, it wasn't their immortality that made humans special. It was their insatiable curiosity, their boundless creativity, and their unshakable hope for a better future, no matter how long it took to get there. As the stars streaked by in the view screen, Elena smiled. The greatest adventure in human history was about to begin, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.